Hi everyone, Tim the Plane Man here, and welcome to a new edition of Plane Time. So what we're going to be doing is taking a look at the Dancing Wings Hobby Fokker E 3. They call it the Fokker E, but it's the Fokker E Micro K08 plane. And the difference with this one from the Sopwith Pup video that you also have, the other edition that's already online, is I've built the plane already. This is the build from the kit, so I didn't video the building, and we have here basically a complete plane without electronics. And what happened was that when I ordered the plane, I ordered it with the motor. There was a kit that came with the motor, and then I realized I didn't have the right electronics to support it. A little bit of bad planning there. So what I've done is I've ordered the electronics and they've arrived. And so now it's time to look at putting the electronics into the plane. A little tricky because it's kind of after the event, but with the hatch that's in the bottom of the plane and the open frame here, it shouldn't be too bad. So this will be the experience of building and putting the electronics into the Fokker E. Let's see how it goes. This is my first attempt at trying this overhead video, so we'll see how it goes. But I felt with all of the fine little parts that we're working with here that it was really important that you be able to see what's going on. So what actually started this whole adventure with the electronics for this machine is that when I bought the Eindecker model, it came with a brushless motor, and it came with a ESC, and this is it here. So an electronic speed controller. Electronic speed controller is intended to be plugged into a receiver and into the motor itself. So the feed from the receiver, which comes in this end, would go into the receiver, and the electronic speed controller would connect into here, which goes into these three plugs here. That would give you the receiver the ability to control the speed of the motor, to start it, to stop it, all that good stuff. So I started by asking Dancing Wings what set of electronics they recommend for a receiver and servos, and they recommended a nice little combo pack that came with these tiny little 1.7 gram servos, and I'll provide the links. I think that says SP007, 017, and they're 1.7 grams, and so really tiny, which is perfect for this little model. And I bought those, but for some reason the link to the US website actually provided a different reference than the link to the Canadian website. So I ended up getting the servos with a 445 receiver that didn't actually work for this, and would have been too big for this little plane. So when I looked at what the Dancing Wings guys had recommended, they were actually recommending the RX144 series, or 14X series of receivers, this is what this one is. It's a tiny little receiver here, which is quite interesting, because once I started looking and doing the research, I found out that you could get the 14 series receivers with an E at the end. It will have a built-in ESC, a built-in electronic speed controller. So instead of needing this rather large and quite heavy piece of electronics here, I can get this tiny little thing here, which has got both the receiver and the ESC built in, which for our tiny little Eindecker model seems pretty perfect to me. And so I went ahead and I ordered one of these, and it arrived. And then I figured out the next little surprise that's going to probably something that you guys may not have figured out yet if you're just getting into this, or you bought this wonderful little model and think this is great, I'm going to build it and fly it, is that some assembly is required, and the some assembly in this particular case is not just a question of plugging in the servos, which are here, and these tiny little plugs on the servos fit perfectly into the servo plugs here on the controller, on the receiver, but when I say perfectly, I really have to get my magnifying glass out to see that, but they do actually fit there. The next part is that there's soldering required. The ESC connection, which is 3 plugs or open sockets on the end of the board here, well, they do provide the plug for this, which is kind of helpful. There's actually 2 plugs provided. There's a different one that I'm not going to use. I'm going to use this one here, which they also provide the wire that connects into the plug. So this plug needs to be soldered on to this board here, and those 3 wires of that little plug, they actually do just slide in nicely into the connections at the end of the board. I'm just being very, very careful because I don't want to force anything or bend any wires. That would be quite unfortunate, but when you get it lined up, they actually see that slots in nicely, and all I really need to do is to, a drop of solder on each one of those 3 pins, and there we've got a plug for the ESC, for the motor to connect in, and that will connect to the inboard ESC, which is great, and this little plug slides in there. The trick is these 3 wires need to be able to connect to these 3 wires here. Now what they also do provide is this connector here, which as far as I can see should work quite nicely. My plan is that this connector is going to be a plug, so that's going to click in there, and it actually, I've tried it, it clicks in nicely. And if I just clean off each one of those wires and solder 1 wire to each one of those 3 plugs, then I get a wire here that I can feed through into the back of the model and then connect together. Because what's actually going to happen here is that this wire connected onto the end of here actually has to feed into the back here and into the underneath, where we're going to be mounting the receiver underneath in this little space here where the hatch is, and which has the slots for the two servos, and then a really nice little mounting board here just built for mounting the servo on there, mounting the receiver on there, or the battery, I suppose. And I guess I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is 2 servos, receiver, and then probably put the Velcro for the battery on that little spot there, so that the battery is as far forward as possible. One thing I've noticed with almost every model that I've worked with so far is they all need weight at the front, and one of the simplest way to do that is just put the battery as far forward as possible. So this is the battery that I bought, and that also needs to be connected here. So that's how our electronic speed control is going to be connected. That's going to be soldered on to there. So I've got already 6 solders that I need to do, 1, 2, 3 for the pins on that. Then I need to solder the 3 wires onto this connector that's going to connect to the motor. So that's good so far. The servos are great because the servos will just plug together. There's nothing required here for the servos. All I really need to do is to push the servo arms on there, but that's again just a fairly simple thing. No glue or anything like that. They just basically the little servo pieces that come with the servos here, servo arms. I'll just basically push those on, and I think we'll be good. So the last part is power. We need to power this little frame that we've got set up here, and these are the batteries. Again, you have to figure this out. The recommendation from Dancing Wings was a 150 to 200 milliamp hour battery, mAh battery, and it needs to be 3.7 volts. And they did give a link to a battery on the website, and I ended up ordering something different, and partly because of the connector and wire problem. So what actually comes out of the box with this particular receiver in terms of power connectors is not much. And what you have to understand and work out is that there are two little solder spots on the back of the receiver here, a plus and a minus, and they're very fine. If I was using maybe a slightly larger receiver, I guess you'll get a little bit more room to work with, but there's advantages to this small receiver. A couple of the others that I ordered end up, even though they say micro, ended up being too big to fit inside this frame. So I have to deal with this. So basically there's a minus and a plus, but nothing else. So there was no wires provided for the power. So what happened was, this actually works out quite nicely. When I ordered these batteries, they come with this connector, and this connector connects into the end of this wire. I think it's into, which end is it? One end goes into this end here. So if you can imagine, once the plane's connected together, that, you know, when you're going to charge your battery, you'll take this out, you go away and charge it, then you're going to want to come back in and plug it in to the plane. Well, this is where your connector will be for plugging into the plane. So that actually works out quite well. I get the battery with a wire with a connector that I can use onto the plane, and all I need to do is remove this end of the other end of that wire connector here. I'm simply going to cut that off, strip the wires, and then solder those two ends, the plus and minus, to those tiny little spots on the back end of the board there. I'm going to probably get my highest magnification magnifying glass out to do that when I do that. So that's the plan, and this is so I'll just lay those pieces out again. We've got our elevator and rudder. So actually, let me put it around the other way. Rudder on that side, elevator on this side. Electronic speed controller cable will connect to the motor, and we'll wire up this battery to connect to this connector here, and hopefully Bob's your uncle. Let's see how it goes.